Welcome to the JoyPunk podcast. I am Jenelle Etzel, your host. My guest today is Javier Alomoía. Javier is in the top 1% of brokers in our market, and in his 14-year career has sold more than $400 million worth of real estate, completing over 800 transactions. Javier immigrated to the United States from Ecuador in his early 20s with degrees in economics and international business. He has made community service the cornerstone of his business, successfully getting more affordable housing built in our city and supporting after-school programs for our youth. Welcome, Javier.
Thank you, Jenelle. What an honor.
You know, the podcast is called the JoyPunk podcast. And what's so punk to me about you is that you created something out of nothing. Very few people can say that. Like, you dove headfirst into the mosh pit of what is the United States, have successfully surfed it to tremendous success while bringing those in your community along with you. And this is a tough business. Like, real estate's a really tough business. And right now, people are feeling that. And you've carved out unparalleled success in a country that was not your birthplace, not in your first language, without the connections and legacy that many in the business lean into. Can you take us on the journey that led you to wanting to come to the United States in the first place?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Do you want to take me all the way back to 1992, I think?
Cue the sound garden.
Cue the sound garden. We were just talking about that. My dad really, like, he's like, son, you have to learn English. Like, you know, this is something that you want to do. If you don't end up in the States, that's fine. But this is something that can propel you to a better job or a better life down the road. So I have family that lives in New Mexico. My aunt and my cousin moved there in the late 90s. So he, brokered a deal with my aunt and my cousin. And he's like, as soon as Javier graduates from high school, he's going to move to the States and he's going to spend, a year at least so he can learn English. So that was kind of the beginning. So I moved to New Mexico in 1995, 94 actually, after graduating high school. And I spent 9 months there. And that was kind of the beginning, right? That did not work out for whatever reason. I moved back home and got into college. And then I met my ex-wife halfway into it. She's an American from Northeast Portland, went to Grand High School. And the rest is kind of history. She imported me and, I got here. I arrived in the States on 4th of July of 2000. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always like to tell that story because I wish there would have been fireworks at the airport and boom, boom. And there weren't.
They're like, welcome, welcome. Not to go there, but not always the case for a lot of people who immigrate here. I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
So you got here and then, what was that? What was that like? Like you're like, okay, new country, who dis?
Yeah. Well, just having graduated from college, I was like, I got to get a job. I kind of had things lined up in Ecuador because if you go to a good school and you have a network, then you're like, it's probably going to be easy for me to get a job. But when I landed here, I have no money, no connections. I really know nothing. So it was humbling experience to land with what I thought was all the tools because I already kind of spoke English. And, the doors were shut. I was like, no, your degree, not good enough. Your experience, none, not good enough. So took me a couple years to figure it out.
Yeah, it must have been somewhat frustrating, maybe a little bit humbling. You're like, hang on.
Yeah.
I've got these degrees.
Yeah.
This was
they don't
supposed
mean
to
anything.
be. Yeah.
Do they ever?
I have a weaving degree, and that's how I wound up in real estate, having degrees that don't mean anything.
Right.
It's like, oh gosh, what will we do? What were some of the first jobs that you did, or did you get right into real estate?
No. So, I was offered a lot of jobs that I just didn't want to take. I was, kind of a brat, actually. I don't want to go there. But I always had interest in business and money. And one day I was doing laundry and I was out of quarters. So I was like, I got to walk down to Bank of America. I lived on 8th and Howell, downtown Seattle. So I was like, I got to go. I got to, walk down there. And I met a girl that was a teller and she was Peruvian. And she's like, well, do you speak Spanish? Your name is Javier. I'm like, yeah, sure. And she actually told me that they were hiring. That was 2 months into it. After I had, sent a bunch of resumes. I went to a couple interviews and nothing worked out. And I applied for a job as a bank teller at Bank of America, and I got the job within a couple weeks. So that was an eye-opening experience because I had kind of a backstage to people's finances, right? I could see their
Mm-hmm.
bank accounts. And I quickly realized that there were a lot of people that looked really nice. They dressed really well. They obviously had pretty good jobs, and they lived in downtown Seattle. They didn't have any money in their checking account. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And people are in debt.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my first job was banking, and that was a great experience. I worked myself from being a bank teller to a merchant teller. So merchant tellers are tellers that help businesses. So I got to see kind of the other side where business owners had actually a bunch of money in their checking accounts.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh, I need to become a business owner as
Yeah.
soon as possible. So that was kind of the beginning, right? So that took a couple of years, and kind of the rest. I took another job as a bookkeeper at a rail car company, and then yeah, I mean, by chance, a buddy of mine uh, told me, "Hey, Javier, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm working at a rail car company, doing bookkeeping." I'm like, "What are you doing?" I just got into real estate 3 years ago, and I've made a lot of money. You need to check this out.
Okay, I want to get into like the call to real estate, but you said something that's really interesting about getting a job at the bank. With the teller was Peruvian, and she's like, "Your name's Javier, you speak Spanish."
Yeah.
So at that point, being bilingual was really like an advantage. Like,
Yeah.
oh, there might be opportunity for me here because
Yeah.
I speak Spanish. But I am guessing you s- you, you speak with no accent. Did you work really hard to try to assimilate initially? Like, how is this going to be an advantage? Or are you always present to what's an advantage and what's a disadvantage, and kind of that code switching that you hear a lot of people to do?
Yeah, there's a combination of things there. My personality is one of them. I'm pretty OCD about things. But I consciously, I realize that people do not only get discriminated by how they look, but also
Mhm.
how they sound. And I was pretty important to me. And I had a good foundation because I went to a private school. So I spoke a little bit of English before I got here. Not as good as I do now, obviously, but I really wanted to perfect it. I
Mhm.
just really I didn't want to stand out to be honest with you. I was, hey, if I know other people have done it, I'm only 23, I think it could be done. So I'm pretty obsessive about things. So I took me a few years, but it was very deliberate and it took a lot of work.
Yeah. How do you do that? Like we at home, we love pretending that we have English accents. We practice it every day. We're terrible. All of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I'm a one trick pony. This is all I can do though.
is it just like watching television or reading or classes or
There's a few hacks.
yeah.
I love cinema, so I have movies that I've watched over and over and over again. So if you put the captions on and you watch it over and over and over again, your brain all of a sudden assimilates.
Uh,
If you read books
yeah.
with the audio on and you're following the letters,
Mm.
that also, just like an instant, it goes into your brain, and then all of a sudden, a word that you didn't know how to pronounce, there it is.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
But then and now I kind of, just to make sense of all this, I wish I kind of had an accent now because it's a part of your identity. So,
Mm.
but now I can't get rid of it. I just
Hmm.
sound weird.
Well, what's funny is that I can imagine when I read a book, I start thinking like the character. I'll find myself having the same thought patterns or like outlook as a character. And I'm wondering with so many movies, you start sounding like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or you were
Right.
like, oh, okay, hang on, wait.
All right, I'm going to disclose a little secret here. Teenager, I used to watch the show Saved by the Bell.
Oh! Oh,
So I memorized the intro song, and I at some point thought people told me I sounded like Zach Morris. So
okay. So my husband, who's in the studio with us, because he's the producer of the show, has a Saved by the Bell tattoo.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
what a connection.
there's an obsession here. There's an obsession.
Football and Saved by the Bell.
Best friends forever. That's all it would take. So, okay, back to you have a buddy who's like, what are you doing? You're
Right.
bookkeeping for the railway.
In a little cubicle crunching numbers. What are you doing?
So what happened from there?
So I like to tell this story too because it's another movie reference and I'm a movie geek. The movie The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
Jonah Hill asked Leo DiCaprio, what doesn't make sense? You drive that car. How much money do you make? And Leo is like, 72,000 last month. And my buddy actually showed me his bank account. He had made $150,000 in 3 months. Like, dude, I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna drive down there. And he lived in Miami at the time, so I literally quit my job a month later and drove cross country to start in real estate in 2004.
And that's like moving to another country to go
Yeah.
from the Northwest to Miami.
Yeah, and Miami's so interesting. I'm sure you've been there. It's another country within the U.S. a little bit.
Yeah. And so what was getting into real estate like there?
So I was not. I got my license, but I was not selling real estate. I was investing. So investing with other people's monies. And I did that for crashed and burned 1,000 times. I didn't make any money for the first 6 months, and then I found a house that we could flip, and we made $40,000 within a month. We split that 3 ways. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually not that hard. All I have to do is, make some calls and be in the office every day, work really, really hard. And things just started happening. I think it's kind of a mindset. When
Yeah.
you think it's possible, it's possible.
Yes, it's so true. The first flip that I did, the goal was just to not lose money. And we made $7,000, which is kind of laughable now. But
Yeah.
it was like, okay, success. Now what? Like you just get that momentum and so much of what those first months in real estate, whether it's investing, probably with anything, is just the confidence, like, oh, I can do it.
Yeah.
Like this is gonna be possible.
Yeah.
And then so what's next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my first, it was kind of easy. It was like, we didn't even do any work to it. It was a
Mhm.
pre-construction. So we bought it for like, I don't know, 280
Mhm.
and we sold it for like 420. So, and we didn't do anything to it because there was so much demand in the market.
Yeah.
And it was unfortunate. It was 2004, because that was the bubble, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
what created the bubble.
Yeah.
People speculating too much with real estate. Anybody could get a loan. Actually, a loan officer offered me a 1% interest mortgage. That was negative amortization, right? So that's something where your principal increases every month because you're not paying
Yeah.
the rate that you're supposed to be paying.
So were you in Miami for the bubble? So, you're having this success. And at that time, it's arguable we were all having success just because we could just ride the
Yeah.
momentum,
Right.
right? Like it's easy to be successful when you're rowing with a stream that's
Right.
really fast in one
Yeah.
direction. So I wonder, what were your big learnings as you hit the crash, and like where were you by that point?
By that point, I had moved back to Portland.
Mhm.
So 2004 and 2005, where it was Miami, and then we decided to move back to Portland, where my ex's family is from, and I signed up with Remax in 2005, June of 2005, and that was a couple years of just me grinding at it, right,
Yeah.
working really hard, and really leaning into what I still think is my biggest strength, which is my niche market within the
Mhm.
Latino community.
Mhm.
First-time home buyers, and maybe second-generation Latinos that identify not just because of the language, but because of the culture. And I did that for a couple years. And we were creating the bubble, right? I mean, a
Mhm.
lot of these people were getting bad loans, getting charged a lot of points and ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages. So by the time the crash happened in September 2008, I remember it, I had partnered up with the Portland Housing Center. Portland Housing Center is a local nonprofit organization that they teach home buying classes and they
Mhm.
provide a lot of resources. So by that point, I had been doing that for about a year. And by the time 2008 hit, my market had diversified. So
Mhm.
I was actually helping a lot of people that were very educated about the process and had saved it for their down payment and were getting pretty good loans. And that became another niche of my market.
Mhm.
So that saved me. actually. And
Yeah.
also the fact that I didn't spend any money for the first 2 years because I knew the crash was coming.
Something actually, as I was thinking about this interview, I wanted to ask you about that because I think moving to a new country where you have that feeling of like, wow, there's not a lot of safety net here
Right.
and this is all new. I'm wondering if that's really influenced the way you think about managing your finances and your business.
Yeah. I mean, the first introduction to that concept was my job at the bank because I saw
Mm-hmm.
that people literally had no cushion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I got into real estate, I was like, I need to have at least 6 months to a year kind of liquid,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that really helps me, you know, think about the future and budget and go to bed at night and be able to have a good night's sleep. I really believe in savings. I'm still kind of old school, so yeah.
When I went to go buy my first house, I was raised by a grandpa who had lived through the Dust Bowl.
Mm,
So credit was like, you don't do credit. Like that's just not a thing we do.
hmm
So I had absolutely no credit. Went to go buy my first house. I didn't exist because I never had a car loan. We
Oh,
paid for everything with cash. And I remember my lender at the time was like, I really don't see this unless the people have newly immigrated here or, you know. And so the only thing on my
where's your accent?
yeah, the only thing on my credit report was an overdue library fine. So I had to drive to Eugene, take care of that, and then
That's funny.
like build it. But so I want to ask something that's kind of granular for the real estate community because I think that this is a skill that I'm really trying to get my own agents at Living Room to think about. But like managing cash flow throughout the year.
hmm
So, for example, when you're paying your membership or desk fees,
hmm
do you do that over the year? Or do you do it like front load it? Like how do you run your business to kind of like smooth out the bumps of finances?
It happens more organically now, right?
Yeah.
I pay my desk fee within a couple months, and then off we go.
Mm-hmm.
Beginning, I was like, desk fee? I forgot about that. That was on the contract. I think now I have buckets in my accounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as the check hits my bank account, it gets distributed. Taxes, 40%.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even count that.
Yeah.
And I have a good CRM that I can plan at the beginning of the year, and I can, set a goal. And every month, if I'm not working every day towards that goal, I know that that's like the only thing that I can think of. My mindset is what helps me budget for the future, right? I try to be very conservative with money, but also aggressive with work. So that duality is what helps me. I don't know if that answers your
I
question.
love that actually. Like mindset helping you budget for the future is such a lovely way of putting that actually. Something that I love about your business and kind of takes me back to, 2008 is when I had the brilliant idea to start Living Room Realty. Oh, a housing crash. That's good. And I remember that first year of trying to recruit and the year after, it was really hard because I would look at an agent's numbers
hmm
and some really great agents had no numbers because they were literally consulting people to just hold on. Like,
Mm,
don't do anything. You don't want to
hmm
do anything right now. Just kind of hold on. So I couldn't recruit an agent with their current numbers as any future indication of their success.
Correct.
And so what I did was look for agents that were heavily involved in community service and had a history of really dependably showing up for their community. And that is how it feels like you've built your business.
Yeah.
And was that a strategy for you, or is that just like that's just what you have a calling, you're placed on earth to do this?
I'd like to think so, but I think just like anything, it just kind of happens by chance. And there was a need in the community for somebody who spoke Spanish and would teach these classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And since I say yes to everything, I'm like, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Want to do a podcast? Sure, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Want to talk about your life for about an hour in front of 60 agents? Sure, I'll do that. Uh, I think that then once you do it and if you're intentional about it, and maybe you're thinking about this as a long-term career, um, you're like, this feels good. This feels
Mm,
good. I'd much rather build my business where I'm meeting great people. I'm inspired by their whatever it is, their philosophy, their careers, that anything, I want to meet more people like that. I want to be
Yeah.
around more people like that.
Hmm.
I also want to make a lot of money, but I think I can have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes longer though. It takes much longer to eat your cake, but you maybe eventually you'll eat it.
All good things take time. Yeah, my partner that I own this building that we're talking in right now, he always says, "I just want to make more money, so give more money away, have bigger impact." And he's
Yeah,
just really motivated by good.
yeah.
And it's fun to see. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with Hacienda?
Sure. So I got acquainted with Hacienda in 2010. I was teaching home buying classes at Portland Housing Center, and Hacienda needed another home buying instructor to teach their classes in Spanish. So they kind of recruited me. And that was a couple of years. And then I was like, I want to get more involved. I love this organization.
Hmm.
Hacienda is a community development corporation. So we basically build affordable houses
Mm.
and we provide services to the community, right? So after school programs, we own the Mercado. We have a home ownership program. So there's just a lot of wraparound services around affordable housing. Affordable housing is what it's sort of a landing pad for people that need help at the beginning.
Hmm.
And then you sort of move them from that to potentially home ownership and business ownership. So I was really inspired by that. And I became part of their board in 2013. And this is 11 years later. And now I'm honored to be their chair. So,
And for you, like the mission, I imagine, has a lot to do with creating equity for, for that population here in our city. And like that getting people into affordable housing, like you see the line towards eventual home ownership,
yeah,
I
of course.
imagine.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, people don't immigrate just to live in affordable housing forever, right?
Hmm.
They didn't just give up everything to come here and just get by. They actually want to own property. They want to own businesses. The Latino community is very entrepreneurial, and we're the hardest workers, right? We all know that.
Yeah.
So I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that process.
I was looking up some facts on American wealth today, and I was really surprised to learn that 13%, so more than 1 out of 10 billionaires in our country, are immigrants.
Yeah.
And like that to me is just incredible. And I'd read a stat, I looked that up because I'd read a stat earlier before that 50% of millionaires in our country, self-made millionaires, are also immigrants.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, as someone that's come here, like why do you think that is?
I think people are obviously they see this as the land of opportunity, right?
Mhm.
That's the slogan of the US, sold by Hollywood, which I love. I think it's people that just want to come here and work hard and make a better life for themselves and their families, and they will not stop at anything to achieve that.
Mm.
What attracted me to real estate is the fact that there was really no ceiling to how much money I can make. And money is sort of this word that has a bit of a negative connotation now, but I see money as, like you said, resources to do more good for not just myself, but for the community. At the end of the day, I think, you and I maybe, I want to leave a legacy, right?
Mhm.
I see my son who wants to be an MMA fighter.
Mhm.
Hopefully not. That's what's most important, right? Leaving
Mhm.
legacy. And, the only way to potentially achieve that, for me at least, my humble opinion, is a career that has no ceiling.
I think there's so many threads that I'm picking up from our conversation that are really, it's about mindset.
Yeah.
And I imagine when you come from a mindset of, just even the discipline to get here, I can't imagine immigrating to the US is very easy. So you've already okay, I've accomplished what is really difficult. What else can I do? And then next, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And what are your habits of success? Like, what are the kind of the cornerstone practices that keep you striving forward?
My favorite word, repetition. So I try to keep a schedule every day. So, hey, no news. If you wake up early, you'll maybe catch the worm. So you
Hmm.
get up super early and you get into that mindset because maybe that's the only time that the house is quiet,
Hmm.
right? The dogs are not barking, the lights are down. I think you need to allow yourself a little bit of time with yourself to self-reflect and to envision your day, the future, the next day, the next
Hmm.
week, the next year. And and as you wake up every morning, that's the best time. So my ritual is get up super early and have that little ritual with myself, and then get into work for a really, really intentional, uninterrupted work for a couple of hours.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. And
Yeah.
then the rest of the day and the rest of the week and the rest of the year is just capitalizing on those 2 little hours that I invested every year.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have those 2 hours, I wouldn't have anything.
I feel the same way because it's so easy to get off your groove, and it's like you setting up the intention. And if you work with intention, just writing down the 3 most important things I need to do today, and then like looking at the day and really strategizing about it. And especially, we're both parents. Once the kids wake up, you don't know what's coming at you.
No.
Yeah.
You're at that point, you're just putting out fires, right?
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the day, for the rest of the, up until you go to bed, you're potentially putting out fires.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have that time in the morning, and it's no secret, I mean, gosh, people do it all the time. But I think if you do it intentionally, if you do it every day, I think also silence is super important in the morning. Just don't do anything for 15, 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Just thoughts.
Yeah. I have a 20-minute meditation practice in the morning. Everything good happens in those 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And my staff knows if they really want thinking on something, they'll actually say to me, hey, in your meditation tomorrow, can you think on this? And it's like, wow, what if 20 minutes of silence produces most of the productivity in a day? It's like, maybe I should add another 20.
Yeah, right.
It's so hard. Why are the hardest things also sometimes the easiest? I don't know.
Yeah. Hardest things are the easiest. Yeah.
Or the easiest things are the hardest. Yeah.
Bumper sticker.
Yeah. We talked about at the bank, it was an advantage to speak Spanish. And I've heard you say that everyone has a competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So, find what makes you different, and how does that translate to business? How do you help folks find that? Is that easy for you to identify in other people?
Not necessarily. I think that asking good questions, because sometimes people don't know what they don't know about themselves even, right? Yeah. You're asking really good questions right now, so I'm impressed. But yeah, everybody's different. I mean, we're all a universe. We're all unique, right? And if you can tap into that, and in whatever career you can translate it into business, that's the sweet sauce, right? I mean, for me, it was Spanish at the beginning. I also have, I think, a good ability to be able to relate to people. People can relate to me, and also storytelling is super important. And for that, you got to read some books. You got to do a little bit of work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know if I'm a very good judge sometimes for people's character. You're talking about what makes them unique. Asking questions is super important sometimes, and not just waiting to respond to that question. It's really listening to their answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Oh, you did that, and that was really successful 2 years ago. You should look into that.
Mm-hmm. So you're like really listening with that empathy. And I've heard you say too, I actually wrote it down in a talk that you did, is like, you're always seeking to understand and be understood.
Yeah.
So, you're getting to that deep listening of like, well, I might think this is your unique ability, but let's actually talk about it. And then we get curious before I make a judgment.
Yeah.
Which I bet your clients really love about you and working with you, is that you're going to take the time to figure out where do they really want to go.
Yeah. I think a lot of people get confused that selling is about, it's a exposition, right? Hey, this is the house, this is the kitchen, this is the, and to me, it's more about listening and asking questions.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's, and then the product flourishes, right? It's like, oh, okay, they're answering their own question. There it is.
Yeah. This is the house that fits your story.
Yeah. You've already told me this.
Yeah.
I didn't have to sell it to you.
You're right.
I was able to earn your trust because I asked good questions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. You don't get to $400 million of sales without having a really great sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned having a great CRM.
Yeah.
And the best CRM is the one that you use.
Right.
But I believe you use Sphere.
Correct.
Developed by Ross Seligman here in town, which is an incredible tool.
Yeah. Give him a plug.
Yeah. So good. tell us about engaging with your pipeline. Like, how do you engage folks and how do you think about your sphere? Like, are you touching a lot of people, little people? Do you have different campaigns? How are you keeping your community in touch?
Yeah, so part of the daily routine, right? So coming down, making my coffee, having my 20 minutes of silence, and then really diving into the funnel, right? So you've got your potentials, that these are people that at some point called you about a property. And I'm very meticulous about completely filling out their profiles with,
Mm.
what they like, how many kids they have, what's their dog's name, really trying to understand them at a deep level. They have a name and they have a potential commission, which is a number, but it all comes together. It only comes together if I understand who they are.
Yeah.
So by me really obsessing, remember I'm OCD, I'm obsessing about getting to know them at a deep, deep level, and everybody's a little bit different. I'm good at memorizing things. I'm like, oh, that guy likes this. That guy likes this. That guy is into this. And I start conversations super early in the morning by text message or email, sometimes a phone call. And those conversations, those first 2 hours of the day, pay me dividends day after day.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's me being obsessive about who they are.
That's hospitality. It's
Yeah.
not sales, right? It's like 4 seasons, lessons from the 4
Yeah.
seasons. Like, does this person want their shoes shined and delivered this time? Or would they appreciate a bottle of champagne? Or,
Amazon did not invent Alexa to make your life easier. They invented Alexa to get data points on you, right?
Mhm.
So now they know what you like because they're listening to us potentially, right? For
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
So I want to be able to listen, right? I want to be able to understand who they are, so they would want to buy with me.
One of the things I always have our agents do here is I call it mapping your headwaters.
hmm
Because like, okay, yeah, you did, maybe, for you, for example, done over 800 transactions. But I imagine when you map those up to the headwaters,
hmm
it rolls up to maybe a handful of influential people,
Right.
correct? That like,
Yeah.
that these people, for some reason, whenever they say your name, people listen, write it down and call you.
Right.
It's like, so how do you tend to your headwaters?
It was very important for me to figure out how to be a referable agent, right? What makes me referable? I'm also unique, so I'm going to lean really hard on my strengths, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I don't want to go out and chase people every day. I don't want to cold call. I don't want to go door knock. I don't want to do a million open houses. So what I thought is I'm going to build a round table of people that really, really trust me. And what if this in this round table of people, these people were very highly influential. So I want to be friends with all of them. Guess what? They're also very interesting people. So
Yeah.
I actually want them in my life.
Yeah.
That's what I did. I mean, and then I tend to my core 25, 30 people, and some of them are my best friends, right?
Yeah. And then it's intentional. You've identified those people and and it sounds like you intentionally spend more time, energy, resources on cultivating those relationships.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can only cultivate deep relationships with so many people, right? But a good CRM will help you, build that funnel and really understand everybody. And now, I mean, like, gosh, almost every client that I serve, I want to be their friend. So, so it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you get through the grocery store?
Yeah, yeah. No, but it's good. I mean, and that's what's most rewarding, right? I mean, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, what are we here to do, right? We're here to connect with people. People
Yeah.
want to be with people.
And you build a lot of trust. I think that AI is a really hot topic right now.
hmm
And I can see that agents' eyes either glaze over or they get terrified. They're like, oh my gosh, that's coming to eat my lunch. But I've heard you say people appreciate opinions.
Yep.
And you can ask AI, but you don't know where that's coming from,
Yeah.
and the trust. And so I think everything you're saying feels like it's leading to like building trust and that, like in that relationship, people are going to appreciate what you have to say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, if things change, right? Our market has changed so many times. I mean, when I first started, I was given the phone book and the Thomas Guide, and now we have these wonderful things, right? So if you don't embrace change, you're eventually going to be obsolete, right? So
Mhm.
I embrace it. ChatGPT all day long,
It's making some parts of our job a lot easier. And it's like, embrace it, welcome it, stop resisting. And that's something that's also been a thread through this conversation is that you're like, I say yes.
I say yes.
Yeah.
And when? When can I be there?
And isn't it easier to surrender to like the momentum and yes than like the one of the most successful realtors in our market, Billy Grippo, and he's been doing this forever.
Right.
He always answers his phone.
Yeah.
Because it's way less work.
Yeah.
It's just less work to just say yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't
what's
ignore
happening?
that text. Don't ignore that call. We are not that busy. We're not, let's not pretend like we can't get to it. So, it doesn't give you more power to ignore things.
No, I get the feedback all the time. Oh my gosh, you answered.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is going on in the world?
One of the most successful people that I've met, through the years, I send an email, they respond within 10 minutes. I send a text, it's 5 minutes, and it's succinct, it's to the point, and it's genius.
Oh,
so
yeah, that would not be me. He's not talking about me. If you send me an email, it will be a few days. What do you, as your lens, as you look at the city, what do you think about it and the problems that it's been having and the future of our city? Like, what's your perspective? And you've been here a while too. I mean, you're really a Portlander, and you've chosen to stay here, which is also really interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, as a real estate agent, it's not that easy to just move up and go to another city, right? But when I moved here, from Latin America, from Ecuador, beautiful, right? It's just like the movies. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we're growing as a city. We've, after, social unrest, pandemic, high interest rates, we have some issues. Coming from Latin America, I think I have a different lens, right? I mean, I've seen extreme poverty. I've seen what, how sad it is to see an 8-year-old, barefoot on the streets working for money. That's real poverty. That I go back and I see that and I cry. I think we have some social issues here. I think there's been some potentially bad politics. But as a salesperson, I thrive on positivity and enthusiasm. So if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. This is why I'm staying. I thrive on enthusiasm, positivity, and I'm gonna make this work.
If we take our feelings out of things and we just look at the numbers and stats, the home values here have stayed so steady. Like the demand and the commitment financially for people to still be here. We're still one of the most affordable cities on the West Coast. And you look at these things and it's like and then, a mountain an hour away, the beach an hour away, hiking on a trail and then back at work in 15 minutes. I just talked to a girlfriend who lived in Amsterdam for 1.5 years, and she's like, I literally couldn't get to nature. It sounds like a dynamic city, and people have that wanderlust. Well, in Europe, it's like, well, yeah, but you're going to take a train and then walk to another train station.
Right.
Getting out into this wilderness is harder. So what are you optimistic for? What are you looking forward to in the market and the future of Portland real estate?
Like you said, I mean, I think we are like the most affordable metropolitan city on the West Coast. I mean, what do we have? Seattle, we have San Francisco. We're the most affordable. So I think we have that runway, right? I mean, we have when I first got here, I felt very welcome as an immigrant, especially within the community that I landed. I felt very, very welcome. And I think that Portlanders are smart, are progressive, in whatever sense of the word, but they innovative. I love the artistic side of the city. I love how foodie it is. But yeah, I mean, potentially I'm going to be here for the next 20 years. My son is going to be here for the next 20 years. I think it's going to be great. And but your reality is only what you think it's going to be. Going back to mindset, right? I'm going to make it good because I believe it.
And you're actively making it good and making it better for others too. I really appreciate that. Like that the work that you're doing in the community, whether it's through Hacienda or the Portland Housing Center, or even for our industry through PMAR. Like I love that. This is a mindset of success, is how do I make whatever I'm involved in even better?
Yeah.
That's a mindset of success. And I think, how we can get more people oriented that way is really like probably our greatest challenge as leaders right now.
Yeah. I think you have, again, and then it's a little circle, right? Because when I first got involved with volunteering, teaching classes, I met great people and I was inspired by what they were doing, right? That in turn inspired me to do better for my clients.
Mhm.
And then my clients were then inspired by what I was doing. So do you see the little connection?
Yeah.
And then, I say this all the time. People will buy from you if they trust you, but they will refer everybody they know if they're inspired by you.
Mm.
So if I can do what other people are doing for me to my clients, I know that I'm gonna, by the forces of the gods, I'm gonna get more business, and I'm just gonna keep doing it.
Well, I'm ready to refer you. I'm inspired by you. Thank you so much for coming today on the show.
Thank you. It's been an honor.